Hello everyone and welcome back. This video is going to be my June wrap-up. So I'll be going over all of the books that I read in June. So in June I read like 7.5 books. I'll probably briefly mention the half book that I started, but I don't really have a final rating for it. But June was another good reading month because I just continued series that I was already really enjoying. So I'm not really surprised that I liked the sequels. But let's just get started with the first book, which is The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. And this is the second book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. And I gave this one 5 stars. I also gave the first book, The Mask of Mirrors, 5 stars. So I have high hopes that this could become a favorite series of mine. I'm reading the final book in July. But just to talk a little bit about this series, we are following Ren, who is going back to her home of Nadezhra, where she is hoping to con her way into a noble family. And she's doing this by pretending to be an estranged family member who is trying to reconnect. And she ends up getting all wrapped up in the nobility's games, trying to work her way up and impress the Tri-Mentees family. And in this process, she also gets wrapped up in trying to solve this nightmare magic that's been taking over Nadezhra. And this one is multi-POV. We get quite a few POVs in this. I really liked all of the POVs. But to get into some thoughts on the book, it has a recap of the first book at the beginning, which I really appreciated. This was the one time I feel like I didn't really need it because I had just read the first book, which I never usually continue series that close together, but it was nice to have regardless. We got some background and some history on some of our main characters. We got to know them a lot better, which I really enjoyed. I also feel like I enjoyed this second book more because I already kind of knew a lot of the terms that you have to look in the glossary for. I remembered a lot of the names, so I wasn't having to look back constantly like I was in the first book. We also start to see some connections between characters that we didn't really know about before, they didn't really know about before. And we start to see all of the puzzle pieces come together in this one. Everything starts to make sense. I did end up liking this second book more than the first. We get more involved in the magic and the mystery in this one. And we finally, like I said, we get those answers. Things start to come together. I'm kind of nervous for the last book. I'm really afraid we're going to lose some characters. I really don't want to lose anyone. I've really grown attached to these characters. I definitely recommend if you're looking for a finished fantasy trilogy. It's more of a dark fantasy with creatures and a really interesting magic system. We have Numenatria, which uses like ancient geometry, and then we have Pattern that's kind of like tarot, and then there's Imbuing, which imbues objects with powers. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, then I think you would enjoy this. The second book I read in June was Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the third book in the Throne of Glass series. And this one was also 5 stars. This was my first 5-star in the Throne of Glass series. Definitely my favorite book in the series so far. And in the first book, Throne of Glass, we follow Selena Sardothian, who is an assassin. And Selena has been captured and sent to End-of-Year Prison, where she is meant to stay and work in the mines for the rest of her life. And then the prince and the captain of the guard show up and they offer her a deal. And this deal is that she can come to the castle and compete to be the king's champion. And if she wins these trials, she will serve the king for a set amount of years and then she will have her freedom. So she goes ahead and takes this deal. But that's just where our story starts, and then things really kind of evolve and expand. And in this third book, we get to see a new place that I really enjoyed. We met some new characters that are definitely going to be important to our story and who I really liked as well. It's really interesting to me to see how different this series really is from ACOTAR. I've completely finished ACOTAR and I really enjoyed that as well, but it's just they're 2 series set in the same world, but they are so different. But it's also really fun to sometimes spot some similarities between them. So I've had a lot of fun with that. But in this third book, we get to see way more of the magic and the fae, which is definitely a part of why this has been my favorite one so far. And also Selena really grows on you throughout this series. You start to learn more about her and her history and why she is the way she is. And you see her really change and grow. She's slowly becoming one of my favorite FMCs, I think. I really feel like this book was a really important turning point. There's a lot of important moments in this one. As far as reading order goes, there's a lot of debate on the reading order for this. I liked the reading order I did. I read Throne of Glass first, and then I read Crown of Midnight, and then I went back, read Assassin's Blade, and then read Heir of Fire. And that worked really well for me because I feel like if I had read Assassin's Blade first, I wouldn't have really cared as much. A part of why I really liked that is I liked how it kind of worked as a flashback and I was already really attached to those characters. I've seen people recommend it after Heir of Fire, which I also think could work well. But for me personally, I'm glad I didn't read Assassin's Blade first. But I'm planning to read the next 2 books in this series in July, so I'm very excited to continue. And this is a completed fantasy young adult series. And we have Fae in this one. We have a pretty big cast of side characters. We have some creatures. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, I recommend. The third book I read is just a little novella called How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. And this is a novella from the Folk of the Air trilogy. The first book is The Cruel Prince. The series is by Holly Black. I didn't give this one a rating. This is just a really short novella that has some really interesting illustrations in it and some little bits of history on Cardan. This is about Cardan, and I liked it. If you really like this series, I think it would be worth it to you to read this. I really enjoyed the illustrations in here. I liked seeing some of the moments referenced from the series, and we kind of see his POV. I was just happy to see more of them because I did really enjoy this series, and I'm happy to have kind of seen more of his side of things and his backstory. I think his character makes more sense after reading this. And if you did really enjoy the original trilogy, I think this is worth the read. But in the first book, The Cruel Prince, we follow Jude, who is a human living among the Fae. She's living with a Fae general who got rid of her parents when she was a child, and he took her and her sisters back to the Fae realm to live with him, and he raised them. And now that Jude is older, she's trying to kind of find her place among the Fae, because these are the kind of Fae that are like mischievous and they're pretty cruel to mortals. They really don't like mortals. So Jude and her twin sister are not especially welcome there. But Jude doesn't really want to go back to the mortal world. She wants to find a place to fit in fairy. So we're kind of following her journey trying to find a place for herself. So if you're looking for a finished YA fantasy trilogy with more of the mischievous type of fae and beautiful writing with really interesting characters, Jude is one of my favorite FMCs ever. I definitely think you should check this one out. Next up is Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen, and this is the first book in the Silver Cloak saga. And I gave this one 4 stars. And in this story, we follow Saffron. And Saffron is attending Silver Cloak Academy, who trains the city's elite detectives. And she's doing this in hopes of bringing the Blood Moons to justice because the Blood Moons took out her parents when she was a child. But the thing is, Saffron has actually conned her way into this academy. And she is found out, but instead of kicking her out, they actually offer her this opportunity to infiltrate the Blood Moons and take them down from the inside. And I really did enjoy this one. It has a really unique magic system where pleasure increases your magic and pain ups the quality of the magic. I also thought the world building was pretty good. We learn about some different religions, some different types of magic, different areas of the world. So I'm hoping we'll maybe expand a bit more on that in the next book. If you're wanting to read this for the Academy setting, I wouldn't recommend this one for that. The Academy is really only at the beginning. This story is really about her trying to take down the Blood Moons from the inside. I did like the writing style in this one, which doesn't surprise me because I read Our Infinite Fates by this same author, and I did really like the writing style in that one, even though the story wasn't my favorite. But in Silver Cloak, the world felt really detailed. The characters felt individual, at least the main characters. The side characters in this one do feel kind of unimportant, which I didn't love. I like a good found family and some interesting side characters. But we do get some interesting, deeper glimpses into our main characters that really did make me start to like them. But for probably the first half, I did have similar feelings to when I read Our Infinite Fates, which was that I was enjoying it, but I just wasn't fully invested. It wasn't like I had to keep reading or anything. But I feel like by the second half, I was much more invested. One of our main characters also has a fallow wolf named Rasso, who I really loved. And I did see good chemistry between our 2 main characters, even though you don't really see, there's not much of a romance in this one. I felt like this was more fantasy forward. But this one was kind of darker and more graphic than I had anticipated it to be. This is the author's adult debut, so just know that going in, this is not YA. I liked how we had flawed, morally gray characters. They definitely were not perfect. I'm someone who really likes flawed characters. The first half was good, second half was definitely better, but I'm definitely going to continue this series. The second book comes out sometime this year. I want to say in September. I could be wrong about that, but sometime pretty soon, so I'm excited for that. But if you're looking for something with a unique magic system, it's maybe a little bit darker, with detailed writing, flawed characters, I think you could really enjoy this. Next up, I read Spring of Ruin, and this is the 3rd book in the Sister Solstice series by J.L. Vampa, and I gave this 4.5 stars. And in the first book, Autumn of the Grimoire, we follow Sister Agatha, who is Sister Autumn, and she is one of 4 sisters Solstice. And whenever it is each sister's season, she has to take the grimoire and do the grimoire's bidding. And Agatha really doesn't look forward to her turn with the grimoire. It usually has her do pretty terrible things. And this time, it sends her to a kingdom to marry the prince there. And then when she gets there, she learns this kingdom has some pretty dark secrets that it's hiding, and she gets wrapped up in everything going on with that. And then each book kind of smoothly transitions to a new character we're seeing more of and kind of following more, while still also following our original characters, which I actually really liked. I think that was a good way to handle the multi-POV. And the third book, Spring of Ruin, is about Sorsha, Sister Spring, and she's more of the eclectic, earthy type. She loves to collect little trinkets from all of her adventures, and it's just really about being free and living life, and I really enjoyed her. I really love all of these characters. There's some great side characters in here, a really good found family. We have a new character in this one named Ariel, and I really love her too. But something I will say, there were some unexpected turns in the romance in this one. I'm not sure that I liked it. There really ended up being no romance for Sorsha in this one. We got the very beginning of something and that was it. And then next we have a novella that's following like our villain. And then we have Summer, Sister Summer's book. So I'm just wondering why Sorsha's story was cut so short. Her story just did feel a bit unfinished to me. I'm kind of questioning maybe I should lower my rating on this one, because I also rated Winter of the Wicked 4.5 stars, and I liked that one more. I'd probably lower this. I'm going to put it at 4.25 because the second half of this book did really just leave something to be desired, but I still definitely enjoyed it. This is a great fall time or summerween series if you're looking for something for that. I never see anyone really talking about this one, but I really enjoy it. I recommend it. This is, I believe, a finished series. It's a paranormal series. We have witches, there's animal familiars, there's like a cursed kingdom, there's a magical carnival at some point, and like a darker gothic feel to it. I definitely really enjoyed this series, and I would recommend it if any of that sounds appealing to you. Next up was Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman, and this is the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I gave this one 4 stars. But in this series, we follow Carl, and in the first book, Dungeon Crawler Carl, Carl's ex-girlfriend's cat named Princess Donut escapes out the window, and he runs out after her. It's the middle of the night, and while they're out there, every man-made structure on Earth collapses and seemingly goes underground. And then an announcement is heard that everyone either has to make their way to an entrance to the underground dungeons or stay on Earth and try to survive with all of these structures and everything gone. And everyone who was inside of those structures is gone as well. So Carl and Donut make their way to one of the entrances to the dungeons. And then once they get down there, they realize this is a reality show put on by another planet. It's set up like a video game where when they beat monsters or bosses, they get loot boxes, experience points, skill points, and the goal is really to be the most entertaining, get the most viewers. The system will be more favorable towards you that way. People who are watching can send stuff. So we watch Carl and Donut trying to survive in this dungeon. And I really liked both books. I think I gave them the same rating. I feel like we got to know Carl better in this one. We saw more of his story. I like the way little bits of his story are just kind of slipped in throughout. And there's different themes for different floors. They have to make their way down through the dungeon, 2 different floors. There's a set time limit for them to find an entrance down to the next floor. I love Carl, I love Mongo, I love Donut. There's also really good commentary in this series on capitalism, corporate greed. There's lots of discussions going on in this book. But this is a fun series with good conversations and lovable characters, and I will definitely be continuing. I did the audio with this one along with the normal book. I'm not usually an audiobook person, but I really did enjoy the audio for this. I do recommend it. But I did read the first book without audio, and I really enjoyed that as well. And then the last book I read in June is The Water Lies by Amy Meyerson. And this is a standalone mystery thriller book. And this is dual POV, and one of our main characters is Tessa. And Tessa is heavily pregnant and she has a toddler. And she takes her toddler to a local coffee shop. And while they're there, he starts throwing a tantrum and yelling Gigi at a woman that Tessa has never seen before. But her son is acting like he knows her somehow. The woman doesn't seem to know him. So Tessa kind of brushes it off. And then the next day, that same woman is found in the canals right outside of Tessa's home. And then we also have Barb, who is the woman who was found in the canals' mother. And Barb, as soon as she finds out what happened, she gets on a plane, she goes to LA to try to figure out what actually happened, because she doesn't believe the story that her daughter just fell into these canals on her own. And then once Barb gets to LA, her and Tessa end up meeting up because they're both kind of trying to solve this mystery. and they end up working together. Tessa wasn't my favorite character. She's kind of really frustrating at times. I definitely preferred Barb's POV to hers, I think. I don't know if I mentioned it. I'm giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, which is nice because I've been having a really hard time finding thrillers that I like, and I used to really love thrillers, so that's been kind of disappointing. But as far as some thoughts on the book, so this one is dual POV. I prefer Barb's POV to Tessa's. Tessa was just kind of frustrating at some points. I feel like both of their characters were well written. We see a lot of connections being drawn between them as far as both being mothers and both kind of having these strong instincts to protect. We just see all these similarities being drawn between them, even though there's two such different people in such different places in their lives. And I thought that was really well done. But Barb's POV is more emotional and about finding out what happened. And Tess's POV later on does kind of become more like that. But Tess's POV kind of felt more like it was about her being pregnant and having a toddler for a good chunk of it. But I wouldn't say it like seriously hindered my enjoyment of this book or anything like that. And this mystery definitely kept me intrigued. Like, how does this toddler know her? How did she end up in the canals with no one seeing it? And it stayed interesting throughout. I was actually surprised by the ending. I didn't guess it, I didn't see it coming, and that hasn't happened to me with a thriller in a long while. So yeah, I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a good thriller. I feel like this one was a good summertime read. It's set on Venice Beach, so if you're looking for a good summertime thriller, I recommend. And then the book that I started and I'm gonna finish in July is Jade War by Fonda Lee, and this is the second book in the Green Bone saga. And in the first book, Jade City, we follow the Call family, who run one of 2 major crime families on the island of Kekon. And Kekon is the only place in the world that has this rare magical jade. And this jade can grant certain people superhuman abilities. Only people with certain heritage and training can really handle this jade. And then they can handle it in certain amounts. Certain people can wear more jade than others. Tensions rise between the 2 main clans on the island, and the threat of a war surfaces. And then in the second book, we have a time jump of around a year after the first book ends. The characters do change and adapt to everything that's happened from the first book quite a bit in the second one. We get a lot of expansion on the world and the conflict going on. We get some new characters. We see a lot of politics in this one, the politics of this war beyond just the clans. If you want a finished urban fantasy trilogy with a really unique magic system, we have these crime families, we have a lot of politics in this one, morally gray characters, then I would recommend this one as well. That's all of the books I read in June. I had a really great reading month, actually. I didn't realize how well it had gone. Let me know in the comments below, what did you read in June? Have you read any of the books that I mentioned? What did you think of them? I'll leave my Goodreads and my Instagram in the description if you're interested. I would really appreciate it if you check them out. But that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all in the next one.